Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. I am your host, Fallon Jordan, and today is extra super special because I have my amazing friend and colleague, Whitney Natiello, here. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've probably heard me sprinkle her name in a lot of different ways. And today we are going to be talking about, and it's so funny because Whitney introduced me to human design, which was a divine download that was a 7 day process. It wasn't just like a ping, I got this idea, like had to be fully integrated. And that's kind of what happened with you and the brains technique. And so I thought that was really funny when I was getting ready for our talk. I was like, everything comes back around. Whitney spent many years as an amazing acupuncturist. She ran multiple practices. She and I met through the brain health space, and so we enjoyed that rabbit hole and studying Dr. Amen's work. But again, today I really want to focus on the brains technique because it's something that, again, like we talk about here, is so simple. It takes less than 5 minutes, but it can literally change somebody's life and actually save somebody's life. And so I'm just beyond excited because I actually had my first like scary experience where the brains technique literally saved a little child's life. So we're going to get into it. And thank you, Whitney, for just being your amazing self so that spirit could actually give you this information because I tell people in our sphere, like if you're familiar with EMDR, if you're familiar with EFT tapping, we know that like that's going to just be like totally well known by Gen Pop very soon. And Brains Technique is definitely going to be in that sphere as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I hope so. The results have shown proof all over the place. So yeah. So yeah, the brains technique is it's a way to help when there is a shock or a trauma, when something is sudden, distressing, and isolative, when isolative meaning somebody feels alone and helpless, when those three components are in play, when an event happens, the subconscious, the psyche actually registers that as a threat. And when it registers that as a threat, it takes at that millisecond that that threat is registered, it takes a 360-degree snapshot of everything that's happening in that moment, utilizing all five of our senses. So that is why when something happens and you have a memory, all of a sudden a smell will come, and all of a sudden you'll be back into that original event. So it could be like a hurricane. And so the smell of mold could be a trigger for that person, where all of a sudden that smell actually triggers them back to that moment in that hurricane during that time that it was registered a threat. So what the brain's technique does is it works with acute trauma and acute stress. So what that means is anything in the past 4 months. If it's older than 4 months, if the event happened more than 4 months ago, I recommend people go to an EMDR trained therapist. That is specific for post-traumatic stress. Before it turns to post-traumatic stress in the brain, you can use the brain's technique to actually go into that snapshot, into that millisecond of when that was a threat that was registered, and you can repattern the brain and rewire it so that all of those senses, all of those things that were happening in the environment do not become a trigger for later on. That's what post-traumatic stress is. Post-traumatic stress is that there is a trigger from that original event. So the brain's technique actually prevents somebody going into post-traumatic stress. The challenge with the brain's technique is that people don't know it and you need it in the moment. So I would love to hear your story in a minute about what your experiences was with the little girl. And you need to know it so that when you need it, it is there. And it is a skill. And once you have it for the rest of your life. And you can use it on yourself. You can use it on your loved ones. You can use it on your pets. Um, and it's just really incredibly valuable. I was witness to a car accident last year, And I got out of the car and I went to the woman who was driving and I assessed her and was able to pull her out of the car. And she was just looping and was saying over and over and over again, "Oh my God, this is my friend's car. I just dropped her off at the airport. She's going to kill me." And those were the three sentences that she could say. She couldn't tell me her name. She was totally in shock. And so we called to 911. Can you come over and sit on the grass with me? And she's like, "I can't sit down." And I was like, "Well, can you just sit down for just 5 minutes with me? And if you would like some relief, I think I can give you some relief." And she said, "Okay." And so she sat down and I started doing the brains technique on her because you can do it on yourself, but when somebody is in such a shock space like that, they can't think and do it on themselves at the same time. And so I did the bilateral tapping in the sequence that it takes for the brains technique. And about 7 minutes in, she took a deep breath. She had been shaking. She had been just adrenaline shaking shock. And after about 7 minutes, she took a deep breath. Her body calmed down. She kind of looked at me. She looked over at the scene of the accident and all of the things that were happening over there. And she was like, "Oh, my car insurance will take care of this. My friend is going to be so thrilled that I am alive and I'm okay. Everything's going to be fine." So she had gone from massive threat and shock in her subconscious to "I'm okay and I'm going to be okay." And so now she does not have post-traumatic stress triggers. So she had had the accident in an intersection and it was a white truck that hit her. And so she could have, if we didn't do it at that moment, anytime she saw a white truck, anytime she got in the car, or anytime she was in a light, she could have gone into anxiety or panic attack. And so we mitigated that all at the same moment. So you can use it in a traumatic situation like that. I've used it. I'm in Western North Carolina, and we had Hurricane Helene come through last late September. And I actually was about to launch everything with the brains technique. And I put everything aside because I started treating first responders, volunteers, and people who were affected by the hurricane. And I just treated probably close to 1,000 at least people who had been affected by the hurricane. And we mitigated post-traumatic stress quickly and helped people to get back to their lives. Because when you're in that shock state, you cannot think. You do not have blood flow here in your prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is all about making logical decisions and being able to see the consequences of your actions. And it's our executive manager in the brain. And so that gets turned off when there is a shock to the system. So those are like the big things that happen and that the brains technique works beautifully in. And then it also works beautifully in small moments. So you could be in your house and you could be with your spouse, and he turns around and he has this tone in his voice and a look in his eye. And that actually triggers you from a post-traumatic stress event that happened earlier. So it could have been your dad was abusive and your dad used to use that tone or that look, and that snaps you into all of a sudden being aggressive or shutting down or going into fight or flight or having a panic attack. And so there's all of these triggers that happen in our system that we're not even aware of that actually is due to prior events. So if it's an event, if it's something like that, where you constantly are getting triggered by something in your environment, person, place, or thing, or any of the five senses, you can actually do the brains technique for that specific trigger. We would not, in that case, I would not go back to, say, if it was an abusive childhood, an abusive father, I would not go back to that, but I would go back to what that trigger is. So it's a look or a tone or a smell or sound. And we can actually downgrade and find resolution. Here's the gem of the brains technique. The brain's technique is it is the psyche, it is the subconscious that registers the threat. And it is the psyche that needs to resolve the threat. I could have been at that car accident and I hugged that. I asked that woman if I could hug her because I wanted her to stay in her body. And she said yes. And so I hugged her and I was like, you're okay. That does not register when the psyche is under threat. It does not register. And so the psyche has to process and come through that. And in the brain's technique, it takes, anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. Sometimes it takes 10 minutes. But that's the beauty of the technique. And so you can use it if you want to change a belief system, if you're trying to change a behavior, if you're getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning and eating ice cream and you want to stop that, you can actually do it for that. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you're stressed and you have all of these things floating in your mind and you can't go back to sleep, you can use the brain's technique in the middle of the night. You can use it to fall asleep. You can use it. There's 12 different ways to apply the brain's technique. So there's yeah, there's a lot to it. So it's a simple process, but to learn it is more of an art because you really have to find that millisecond when that threat was registered. And if you can't find that, you can use the trigger of whatever triggers you. But that is the art of it. So that's what takes a little bit of learning. The mechanics of it of itself is very easy to learn.
Amazing. So I think some of us maybe have heard the word psyche, but we don't really understand what that means. Do you mind explaining
Yeah,
that?
thank you. So the psyche is it's the subconscious, it is the conscious brain, it is the subconscious brain, it is your intuition, it is the human part of us that keeps us safe. It is that hypervigilant part of us that 24/7 is looking around to make sure that we are safe. And so it includes your past experience, it includes your parents' past experience, it includes their parents' past experience. So it goes back ancestrally because whatever their beliefs or thoughts were. So, just even something simple. I was working with somebody the other day and they were talking about that they have trouble on a sidewalk and they can't walk over a crack. And so
Oh boy.
we we were, and this is an adult, and we were talking about like where did that come from? Well, mom or dad said, don't step on the crack, don't step on the crack. And for some reason, that child, that person, that child, when he was a child at that time was like, oh, this is dangerous. I can't do that. Now, the parent didn't mean anything by it. It was just a game that they were playing. But that child's psyche registered that as a threat. And so now, so there was a lot of anxiety where he started, manually finding a resolution to it where he would avoid sidewalks. And
Wow.
so he was getting to the point where he just wanted to take care of that. And so we were able to mitigate that. We were able to go back into a most recent time, not all the way back in the past, but in the past couple of months when he went to do it and he started having anxiety and heart palpitations and sweating. And, he was just like, oh my God, this is really dangerous. And so we were able to mitigate that. And his psyche was able to process that and go, oh, it's a sidewalk. It's okay. Um, and I could have told him that, and I'm sure many people through the years have told him that. But his psyche is what registered the threat, and it's his psyche that has to resolve it. So what we're looking for in the brain's technique is an actual resolution. So that resolution can be a different perspective, or it can be physically doing something different that they may not have thought of before. So
Amazing.
so I'll give you an example. So I was working with a woman who had been affected here by the hurricane, and she about a week after the hurricane, it was massive devastation. We still have probably 10 years of cleanup to do here in Western North Carolina. I mean, we just we got hit hard. And about a week after, she went to her favorite hiking spot, and she was just desperate to get out into the woods because of all the trauma. So nothing, she did not register, her psyche did not register a threat during the hurricane itself. But when she went to her favorite hiking spot, she got there and she looked up at the mountain, and the mountain was there, but all the trees were gone. The ent the entire face of the mountain, all the trees were gone. And that just hit her in a way that was traumatizing. And so, because that was her serenity place, that was her place where she went to find her ground. And she was like, "Oh my God, I can't find my ground. I can't find my stability." And so we did the process, and this was within probably 2 weeks of that her experience. And so we went back through, and we want to make sure, sorry. Um, we brought her back into that space, and we went into all of her senses, her entire experience. And as she finished, she thought of three actual resolutions. So one was she said, "I'm a doula. I'm a death doula. This is the death of this part of the earth. I have tools for this. I know how to do this. I know how to do death. I can totally work with this." That was her first realization. Her second realization, as we got blood flow to her prefrontal cortex through the process, was that she wanted to, when we got off the phone, she wanted to do a collage, something with her hands. And she wanted to do a collage in respect to the mountains, to the loss. And then the third thing was she said, "I want to call my girlfriends, and I want to go to that spot, and I want to create a ceremony, and I want to honor the land and the earth that was just devastated." And I said, "Great." And so she completely shifted gears. She was able to mitigate any post-traumatic stress from going there every day or not going there. She would have avoided it if it had kept going, avoided going to that hiking spot, and maybe would have had difficulty in other places to hike in the area. I talked to her the next day, and she said, "The craziest thing happened. As soon as I got off the phone with you, I was working on the collage, and a girlfriend called and said, 'I want to do a ceremony for the earth for all the trees that were lost in Western North Carolina. Can we get a bunch of women together?'" And she was like, "Yes, and I have the perfect spot to do it. I want to take, we want to do it here." And so she was able to just jump into, and so those are three types of different resolutions that she had that I could have recommended to her, and it would not have meant anything. It would not have landed. Her psyche was what registered the threat, and it is her psyche that had to find the new perspective and the resolution. So that's an example.
Very beautiful example. And I love that the brain's technique is so much of what we talk about. Like, it's hard to have the things that you want in life, whether it's the mindset or like the physical things, if your brain isn't working right.
Mhm.
And I know some people listening, when they think of that, they think of like taking their supplements and drinking their water and all that. But like, this is something that so many people don't understand is like a crucial piece,
Mhm.
because we really are meant to come up with our own resolutions. And we do that through the divine and through the intuition. And I love, I mean, I've Whitney and I will be on the phone for hours, and I was like, "Can you just tell me a bunch of testimonials to make me feel good?" And she will. And it's because like it's so simple, but the beauty is in it's not just you helped, like the woman with the white truck, like you helped that trigger be removed, which is amazing because I've seen people's lives destroyed from one car accident because they literally can't get past the PTSD. But it's such a beautiful way to connect, like literally within 5 to 7 minutes with your
Mhm.
higher self, with a brain that's literally functioning better than it was 7 minutes ago, and even before then, because everything's connected.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we know from the brain scans that we SPECS brain scans is when you go into shock or when you go into sudden distress, that a lot of the blood flow leaves the prefrontal cortex area, and our old reptilian brain takes over, and the blood flow really goes into the amygdala and the hypothalamus.
Hmm.
And so that's great for getting out of the way from an alligator or a car or, a tiger chasing us or something like that. And what the brain's technique does is it helps to get blood flow everywhere. And what I see time and time and time and time again is that once you do the brain's technique and you get the blood flow there, not only are you able to access your executive function, but you are also able to access your compassion and your empathy for yourself and for others. So if somebody did something to you and you are just devastated by it, or you don't like the way that they acted or said or did or, whatever, you can do the brain's technique to actually process that because typically when somebody does something, it's because they are going through their own thing and it has nothing to do with us. But we take it as personal. And so when we take something as personal, then we are the ones that suffer. And so if you can process that through the brain's technique and see, like, oh, that person was having a moment or having a hard time, or they were triggered from their wound or whatever, and then I got triggered from mine, like, but you can do a lot of repair for yourself to then be able to go and repair with the relationship. So there's so many ways to use it.
Amazing. And one of my favorite ways is with our fur babies.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. I had a client with a a little miniature greyhound, and they are nervous little guys. And I was at her house, and I have a dog. I love dogs. I feel like I'm a dog person. And I was slowly, approaching this like little creature who was just shaking and everything. And I just could not get near her. And so I sat on the other side of the room and I had the mom of the dog, take the dog on her lap, and she started doing the process on the dog. And as she was doing the process on the dog, she was also getting benefit of the bilateral stimulation as well because she was doing the motion of it. So they both benefited. The dog calmed down in about 4 or 5 minutes. The dogs and children are quicker, and the mom actually fell asleep on the couch. They both fell asleep for about 20 minutes, and for the next 2, 3 weeks, she said the dog did not have any anxiety until a new trigger came when a UPS truck came, and I was like, when the UPS truck comes, go ahead and do the brains technique on the dog to let the dog know this is not a danger. So she was just trying to, protect mom. So yeah, so fur babies can benefit from it as well. So
Yeah, Archer's a fan, obviously. He, there he is. I'm like, I wonder when he's gonna show up because he loves it. And it's so simple. And I love you said, like, it's gonna help the person and the dog, but even just like you with all the people that you've helped. Like it's helping you with the devastation that you experienced at Asheville. Like I know what it's like to witness a car accident and like not know if the person made it. Like to have an idea that like they did and they were okay, like so soothing to me too.
Right.
And so my friend has a 3-year-old and I'm just sharing the background because when I say she was choking, it wasn't like she was choking on something. She has a rare, like very rare disorder where her muscles just like don't work in certain parts of her body very well. And one of them is her throat muscles. So like everything she has to eat has to be like in liquid or puree form. And so when she starts choking out of nowhere, when there's nothing involved, we're like, what's going on? Like this is weird. And
Right.
so she was coughing, she was having whooping cough, but then, and again, I'm glad that I didn't see it, but all of a sudden my friend's like, we need to go to the ER right now. She's not breathing and she's turning blue. And of course, I'm just like, oh my God, like, why is this happening right now? But then immediately we get her in the car seat. I start doing the brains technique on her. And I'm like, this is exactly why I'm here, like in this moment, which is why pretty much if you're watching on YouTube, like I've been literally crying the whole time we've been recording because I just get emotional about the brains technique because it's amazing and it saves lives. And so I did it on this little girl, and like I never like I was scared, but I she wasn't blue. She was breathing. Like we did make it to the hospital and like everything was fine. Like we gave her a little they gave her like a breathing treatment. But I mean, when we were headed toward the hospital originally, like she literally wasn't breathing. And so it helped her immensely. Of course, it helped her parents immensely, but it helped me immensely too because I know all of us here, like we are helpers and we're healers and we literally can't help ourselves, which is why I think I'm on my boundaries kick right now again, because it's like another aspect, but there's a reason why we're always in certain places at certain times. And this is like a skill and a module, whatever word you want to use, that like you have now information to learn more about and to like get certified and have it. And it's not like a normal certification that takes like forever and ever and it's super complex. Like it's it's not. I've gone through it and I had like a crazy calendar while I was doing it. But this is why. Like I just knew that I needed it. And if you've ever had an immediate healing session for me, you know in my form that I make everyone fill out, I ask if you've had a traumatic experience and I direct quote Whitney if you've had anything in the last 4 months, because I have to make sure that we do the brain's technique on top of the energy healing. And I think that, that again, like this is such a missing piece in like psychiatry. This is such a missing piece in even the energy healing space because I mean, I'm a huge fan of Brad Yates. Like I love EFT tapping and stuff. And like I'll even do, tapping on like my different chakras and stuff. But this is totally different because it's specific to your brain
Mhm.
and your body. And that's why I love what you shared about the generational piece because, I've done a lot of programs to release generational trauma and like it's a mix of affirmations and tapping on certain areas. But this is just so different because it's so specific to the brain and literally preventing PTSD. And I know that I can be dramatic, but I mean what I say. And if you're here, you understand now why.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm so grateful that you were there with your friend's little girl to be, I mean, for her to be so if you think about it from a biological standpoint, she's eating pureed food and what was it the cough or was it, do you know what she choked on? Was it like saliva or cough or
It must have been saliva.
it must have been saliva. Okay. So, what happens is, like, from a biological standpoint, her throat started to close to make sure that no more saliva came back in. Like, the body's brilliant. That was a really good thing for the body to do. But what happened is, as it should, it scared the hell out of her, and I mean, she's 3, she's not processing what's going on, but it scared the heck out of her. And then she was scared that she was probably going to die because she couldn't breathe. And so she had that immediate sudden distressing. She felt alone and isolated, where even though there were people around her, like feeling alone and helpless, you can be with people. You can be with your loved one. You can be with your pet. Like it, but you feel like you're the only one who can do something. And that's what that third criteria is for something that an event that is traumatic, that registers as trauma in the brain. And so, her body was doing biologically the right and perfect thing. Hey, there's saliva coming down. We can't have any more saliva turning down. We got to shut it down. But then what happened is the shock went in and then her emotions, her fight or flight came up. And so that's when she was starting to lose even more breath. So as soon as you were able to calm that down through the brain's technique, she was then able to her throat muscles were able to relax and go, "Oh, we're safe. We're okay. We can swallow this." So I mean, that's the beauty. Like it can work so quickly, both. I mean, just in general with trauma and the brain, the way the brain registers pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain or mental pain, the brain doesn't make a difference of that. It's all pain. So it doesn't differentiate and go, this is mental pain and this is physical pain and this, it doesn't do that. It's all the same. And so if she could have been in pain and that could have triggered even more, like, you don't know as a 3-year-old and with her ability to speak. But yeah. So I'm really grateful that you were there and that you knew and you just automatically started doing it. And that's like what we need to be able to have is just like we automatically can, our psyche goes, hey, this is a solution. We can use the brain's technique here. And that's how we use it. So yeah.
It's amazing. I love it.
It's it has been so surprising to me. I mean, I've pulled in 25 years of my life's work and experience as a acupuncturist and herbologist and certified brain health professional and trainer um and German New Medicine and I've pulled all of this in to and I this all came as a matter of my own trauma that a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago, my dear friend was committed suicide. And I was home in my house alone at 9:30 at night, and the nearest human was about a mile away. And I got a message that he had died. And I had just talked to him the night before for about an hour and a half. And we were colleagues, we were friends. His wife worked with me for many, 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 many years. His kids grew up in my office. Like we were super close friends. And I got off the phone and I was just devastated. And I was blaming myself, like, why didn't I see he was in such pain that when I was talking to him the night before, he had three TBIs and or three concussions and a TBI. And so he had a lot of neurological pain for like the past 10 years. And I had asked him before if when I saw that he was in excruciating pain, I'm like, are you thinking about suicide? And he's like, no, no, I would never do that. I would never do that to my wife and to my girls. And so I didn't ask him that night. And of course I was having regrets and kicking myself. And so I would and all of it kicked in because my first husband died suddenly. And I was widowed and left to raise a child as a single parent. And so my girlfriend now all of a sudden was a single mom of three. That kicked up my previous trauma. And so all of this was happening. And, there were so many emotions going on. And I was pacing around my house and I was screaming and I was yelling and I was crying and I was just so upset. And I finally was like, okay, knowing the brain's technique, or I didn't know the brain's technique at that time, but I knew that if I did not resolve this trauma, I was going to be, I was going to go into PTSD and I was going to have the trauma for the rest of my life. And I was like, I've had enough trauma in my life, really not interested in going there. And so the back of my brain is working and going, okay, so if I was in my therapist's office, what would she have me do? And I've done EMDR with her. And so I did a version of EMDR, but I did it differently in terms of pacing and timing and everything else. And after 7 minutes, all of a sudden, I was totally calm. And I was like looking around going, what the hell just happened? Because I couldn't access the intensity of everything that had just happened. And I was like, I don't know what just happened. And then I was like, okay. And so my prefrontal cortex kicked in and I was like, okay, I'm going to start texting people for a food chain my girlfriend and my friend who died, they lived in about an hour away from me. And so I was like, okay, I got to get food to them. I've got to find therapists for each of the girls and her, my girlfriend. I've got to find a place for celebration of life for them, to celebrate his life. I need to get to her. So I know what it was like when my first husband died. And so I was like, I got to go and I got to stay for 2 weeks and I've just got to do whatever she needs to be done because she's got three kids. She's got one car, one adult driving three kids. And And so I had to get my dog taken care of. I had to pack my bag. I had to figure out what, I texted a girlfriend at, 11 o'clock at night and I was like, hey, coming to stay with you for 2 weeks. Is that okay? I need to be closer to my girlfriend. There were all of these logistics and all of a sudden it was just clear as day. And I just took care of everything in like half an hour, closed my computer and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep. And so I went to bed and I was like totally out. I woke up refreshed. I was ready to roll, packed everything up, moved over there for the next 2 weeks and helped take care of her. And so when I got to her, she was shaking still. This was the next day. This was about 24 hours later, and she was still shaking and she was having a hard time talking. And so we did the brains technique then, and she calmed down. And then, when somebody dies, there's just tons of people that are coming through the house, and people would come through, and some were ragefully mad at Todd for dying, for leaving his family and his wife that way, and they were just mad, and that was just hiding their fear and their upset and all of that. And so I would ask people as they would come through, like if I saw they were really upset, like, hey, do you want some relief? This is really hard and big to handle. And they were like, yeah. And so I just started treating people, and I just started doing what I had done for myself. And it that's how the brains technique started, and I just been using it with in every situation. There is not a time. Every couple days I will use it for myself or for somebody else. I'll be on the street and something happens. I was at Ingles at night. It was like 9 o'clock at night, and this drunk woman walks by, and she looks like she's going into the road, and she's all upset. She was a college kid. She was probably about 20 years old, and she was screaming on the phone and she was crying. And I was like, are you okay? And she was totally upset, and I was like, hey, do you just want some relief? Like, this is a lot of what's happening. And she's like, yes, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So I sat her down on the grass. We did it. 10 minutes later, she's fine. She's able to think. She's able to like figure out, oh, I need to call my parents and get picked up, because her boyfriend had dropped her off, had gotten mad, had taken off. He lives like an hour away. She lives like 2 hours away. So she's in a place she has no idea what to do. She feels alone, helpless. This is sudden. This is distressing, totally all of the elements. And so I use it all the time. Like you just never know, I mean, people are just in stress and trauma so much, and it's just easy to use, and all you need is your hands. And if you don't have access to your hands, I've had people working on Zoom, and I've worked with an MS patient who couldn't do the tapping. I've used and so I just asked them to bring a caregiver in, and I walked that person through so they could do the tapping for them. And they took care of it. So that's the beauty of it, is you don't need a therapist. You don't need that there's a time and place for therapy. I'm not saying not to use therapy, but you can use it in the moment. And that's the beauty. Yeah.
Yes,
So.
Whitney is Wonder Woman and Angel on Earth, and you can be too. It doesn't take very long to learn how to do this.
No.
So, if someone's interested in learning, like having a session or getting certified, we're going to put those links below. But did you want to share anything else about what that looks like?
Yeah, sure. So I've got a program called the Brains Technique Foundations. It's 3.5 hours. It's broken up into short, 10, 15-minute video clips. And that is for anybody to learn the brains technique for themselves or for their child or for their pet. And so that is a self-paced program. You can also, there's an addition to that program where you can have access to me for 2 calls a month for Q&A, and I also teach more during that time. And then there's the certification program. So for practitioners, any type of healthcare practitioner, coaches, therapists, social workers, acupuncturists, chiropractors, any type of therapist, nurses, yeah, any type, or caregivers, then I recommend the certification program, and that I do live. And so we start with the Brains Technique Foundations program, so that'll be part of the certification, so they'll get that. to begin before the live course, and that the live course is about 20 hours. So it's not a year-long program. It's it's like 6 to 8 weeks. It's, to me, it's like I want to make it as simple as possible. What we do a lot in the course is practice. So you get to receive treatments and you get to give sessions at the same time so that you can really build confidence in it. So you can use it anytime after that. So,
I know when I was going through it, I was literally just like so angry with money, and I thought I had done all this work around my relationship with money, and the brains technique helped me so much. And it's so funny that like I've been like emotional today, like crying because I normally can't. Like I normally like that I just don't allow myself because of what I was told, right, at some age. Um, but I was able to get out so much. So if anyone here is like me and like wants to get more, like it's not just about getting out of your brain, but like I literally feel it like coming out of my body.
mhm.
And it's amazing. I was doing my energy healing this session this morning and I just had a feeling. I was like, I wonder if I'm gonna need like longer session or because I never know how long the sessions take. I'm like, I don't know if
Mhm.
I'm gonna need something longer or something different's gonna come up because I would like my body was already kind of like excited and in the energy of knowing we were gonna talk about the brain's technique. And sure enough, like I had needed like a full, really long energy healing session for myself. Usually it's just like a couple minutes, but it was like 20 minutes and it was just still going. And I was like, oh yeah. So,
Great.
if you want like all of the tools that are available to you, like this is definitely for like when I work with people, like I want them to be certified in the brains technique. I'm sure after listening today, you understand why, because it's absolutely crucial for you and for your family and your clients, but literally a stranger on the street that you could really, really help.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been, I get different pockets. So I was working with people with the hurricane, just, 1,000 people that way. And then I started working with people with the LA fires that were affected. And now there seems to be a group of moms. And so I'm working with them. And, just even like the mothers feeling like if they make a mistake, they're going to ruin their child for the rest of their lives, or they have a belief system that they're a bad mother, or they're not doing what they could or should, or whatever it is, and so they're beating themselves up, or they've got a chronic illness. It's great for acute and chronic illness, so you can actually use it to help mitigate and downgrade the symptoms, or shorten the length of the healing phase for an acute illness as well. So a chronic illness is simply something that it's a post-traumatic stress uh, trigger that gets triggered over and over and over again. So you can use it, for that as well. I will say, I mean, I defer to you to send patients, clients to you as far as with the brains technique, and I will see people as well. So we'll put that link in for scheduling one-to-one sessions as well. And it's great to have a couple one-to-one sessions with Fallon, with me, or with any other certified practitioners on my website, that so you can have an experience with a certified practitioner and then learn through the Brains Technique Foundations program so that you have a sense of what you're looking for. That can be really helpful. So, but you typically only need, I mean, if you're whatever whatever the kernel that you're working with, whatever that original registered threat that you're working with, you only need to do it once. This is not something you have to do over and over again. Now, you can get another trigger from another something that happens, and then you work with that. But typically, in my experience, you only need to, if you get to the kernel of it, and that's the art of the process. If you get to the kernel, you only have to do it once for that specific track or event or person or whatever. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And we're definitely going to keep having these conversations so that you guys, because like I said, I just love hearing testimonials. And Whitney has the best testimonials because she's helped, as you can imagine, like with the floods and the fires, like people who literally have severe trauma that just happened and being able to help them. So I always use that example, like if we can help them, then we can help you with whatever's going on, right?
We can get them back online so they can make the thousand of decisions that they have to make now because
Hmm.
of the event. I mean, that's the hardest part of an event is it's not just the event because the event's over. It's the after effect and then it's the thousands of decisions in a day that that person has to make. And if they're still in shock or if they have so much anxiety that they don't have access to their prefrontal cortex, that's what makes it hell. I mean, that's what makes a natural disaster hell, is that inability. So when you can do the brain's technique for that and get their brain back working, then it's like, okay, it's hard, but it's not hell. That's the difference. Yeah.
Exactly. I love that. Amazing. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for sharing your magic with us. And like I said, the links will be below for you to learn more. I mean, I tell people this all the time, like limitless ability to help people. You can literally create a business from this model alone. You don't even have to know anything else. It's amazing. So if you've been waiting for a sign and something's clicking, like I'm very, very excited for you, and Whitney and I are here for you. But we're going to close for now. We will be back. We'll talk much more, get more testimonials out for you guys. But we're just sending you so much love and so much gratitude for amazing Whitney.
Thank you so much, Fallon. I so appreciate and just so appreciate you.
Love you so much. And
Love
we
you
love
too.
everyone here. And please share this episode with someone who would find it helpful. We would super appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next time.